Vans built upon its reputation among skateboarders and BMXers initially. The brand was expanding at a fast clip until it was forced into bankruptcy. Although it re-emerged from bankruptcy, it faced a lot of troubles along the way. The brand has now grown into a multi-billion-dollar company. Let's dive in to see what happened. Paul Van Doren, along with two business partners, moved to Southern California to start their own shoe factory. They all had experience in the manufacturing space and had the idea of selling the shoes directly to the public instead of going through retailers. They incorporated as Van Doren Rubber Company and started manufacturing their Vans branded model shoes. They opened their first retail store in 1966 in Anaheim, featuring only display models and manufacturing the shoes when customers wanted to buy one. It did not take long for their shoe style to catch customers' attention. Within a year, Vans was opening a new store every week. Vans developed the waffle sole as a method to reinforce the structure of the shoe to make it more durable. It was not until the early 1970s that the brand really took off. Vans was riding the skateboarding culture as skateboarders liked the rugged makeup and sticky sole of the Vans. Vans swiftly catered to the skateboarders' needs by manufacturing the era shoe at first. In mid-1970s, Vans coined the term "off the wall," which is still used as part of the brand. The phrase reflected its association with skateboarders really well. Vans then manufactured the classic slip-on in late 1970s, which became the rage in Southern California. Paul Van Doren's brother, who joined the company earlier, set out to expand the business. Soon, Vans became the go-to shoe for BMXers. By 1982, Vans gained international recognition when it was worn by Sean Penn in the film Fast Times at Ridgemont High. Demand had spiked so much that they had to move to a bigger facility to fulfill orders. To take advantage of the craze, Vans ventured into other sports categories like basketball, football and baseball. The company also played on the fact that its manufacturing operations was in the U.S. Expansion was afoot when competitors started selling similar items or even counterfeits for cheaper. Vans needed to cut down the prices to match that of competitors, but that proved to be unsustainable. Due to the aggressive expansion, Vans had taken on more overhead costs that was spread across various product lines. It had taken over $10 million in debt that it could not repay on time as it was bleeding out cash. By 1984, Vans was forced to declare bankruptcy, with Paul Van Doren leaving the company. After emerging from bankruptcy 2 years later, Paul came back to head the company. Creditors had been paid in full and Vans was back on track. Customers were still loyal to the brand and production processes were still in the U.S. The advantage of domestic manufacturing helped Vans deliver custom-made orders in a matter of days. In late 1980s, Paul decided to sell the company to McCown de Liu for around $70 million. Then in 1991, Vans went for an IPO and expanded their overseas geographical footprint. The weaker retail environment of the early 1990s did not pose much of a problem to Vans in terms of revenues. The real threat was the manufacturers who were producing shoes in Asia. They were flooding the market again with cheaper shoes as a result of the cheaper labor costs overseas. Vans stuck to domestic production but revenues took a hit. Walter Schoenfeld was brought out of retirement to head Vans. Walter had experience in the industry, heading Britannia Sportswear, which was eventually sold to Levi Strauss. Here's what Walter did. New product lines were manufactured overseas. Underperforming stores were repurposed to small factory outlets. Marketing campaigns were boosted. All of this helped Vans restore revenues and profitability by mid-1990s. Walter went back in retirement again, thinking he left the company in good hands. However, he was called back as Vans started slipping again. This time the situation was worse. Vans had to lay off thousands of workers, closing down a manufacturing plant and restructuring operations. Domestic production had become a burden on profits and thus most production was shifted overseas. Walter decided to expand into adjacent product categories, like snowboard boots and women's and children's lines. The new product lines helped bolster revenue and profits came back gradually. The snowboard boots turned out to play a big part in Vans' financials. More stores were eventually opened internationally. And here comes my favorite part. Vans sponsored the Warped Tour in 1995, and has since bought a controlling interest in it. If you're a hard rock and heavy metal fan, you should know about the Warped Tour. It featured some great bands during its active years, but the yearly tour unfortunately came to an end in 2019. By the end of the 1990s, all domestic production was outsourced overseas. It turned out that overseas plants were more effective and efficient than their American counterparts. Vans added to its apparel product line and partnered with Pacific Sunwear to dominate the sportswear apparel category in the US, competing with Quiksilver and the likes. Vans then undertook a launch of a series of skateboarding parks that proved to be profitable. The brand also rode the wave of sponsorships through its purchase of Triple Crown of Surfing. The Vans Triple Crown series grew to include events across a range of sports. Vans' growth however started to cool off at the turn of the millennium. This is when BF Corp bought the brand in 2004. If you watched our video on Timberland, BF Corp might sound familiar. Although Timberland has not grown much in recent years under BF Corp, I can't say the same for Vans. The brand grew into a multi-billion-dollar company. The growth is actually impressive. Revenues grew from around $400 million in 2004 to over $4 billion by 2020. And it is projected that the brand will break the $5 billion mark by 2023. And you might ask, what is behind the growth? Here is a short summary of the dozen articles I read about Vans' success. New store openings in the US and internationally and the expansion of its e-commerce business brought the brand to new heights. Vans capitalized on the resurgence of the athleisure and retro styles that are widely popular amongst teens. In a way, Vans took its classic shoes and adapted them from action sports to street culture. In recent years, performance was driven by the direct-to-consumer online channel. Collaborations with other brands such as Supreme and the incorporation of tech in the shoes, such as the Mountain Edition, helped set them apart. Do you own a pair of Vans? What do you like about the brand? Do you think they still have room for growth? As always, let us know what you think.